All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to this June 2023 DAS meeting. First thing on the agenda, are there any new members who'd like to introduce themselves? I'm going to turn this around.
I got you.
So we can hear all about you.
Hello, I'm James. I've been interested in astronomy my whole life. Recently got into astrophotography and got the setup that Nico recommended for beginners, every single piece of it, and it's working out pretty well for me. Joined this club about a month ago, but now I have reason to be here. And not solely for Nico, he's kind of, yeah, I had to come. But yeah, really excited to get involved. So welcome. Thank you guys.
Yeah. We're here every Tuesday if you need help.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm Sebastian. I actually went to high school in this area. Mr. Lancaster was my teacher for physics.
You could probably call him Rob now. I know how awkward that is. I know how awkward it is.
I actually feel kind of bad. Even when he was teaching, I was not into astronomy at all. I got into astrophotography about 3 years ago when lockdown happened. I needed something to do with all this expensive glass I'd acquired, so
Cool.
it worked out really well. And I actually joined 2 weeks ago on the recommendation of this gentleman right here, Mr. Ken. And you know that. So that's basically it. That's my story.
Awesome. Welcome. Did I see a hand in the back as well? Oh, boy.
My name is Colin. We're barely newcomers. We're probably, visitors passing by and feel like interested in this seminar or meeting. So, we just decided to hop in.
Cool. Welcome.
I'm a new old member. I joined about 1.5 years ago, and because of a major medical issue, I didn't come for over a year, and I just joined back again. I actually paid my dues. So, I was here a couple of weeks ago to pay my overdue.
Say your name.
Joe, and I started buying all this expensive stuff, and now I've got like 3 telescopes and sound rooms, living room. And I've been using it and learning.
These
But
guys aren't so good.
watching this guy YouTube channels and going like, what the hell's he talking about?
Welcome back, Joe. Anyone else would like to introduce themselves? New members or guests?
And I'm a guest.
Yeah.
So I'm Carl. I'm vaguely related to this guy here.
Uh-huh.
I'm his dad. I've been interested in astronomy since I was like 5 years old, which is 50 plus years ago. So anyway, every once in a while I pop into your events here, and so I'm back for this one.
Cool.
Welcome. Yeah.
No.
I'm introducing.
Just before they walk in, introduce yourself.
No problem.
Hello.
You want to introduce yourself? You're in the middle of doing that.
We were just introducing new members and guests.
Yeah.
I'm Kim.
David.
Great.
Great.
New members or guests or?
I literally joined today.
Awesome. Well, how about a welcome to everybody?
Anybody else? I think we got a big list there.
And for all the new members and guests, we have a social time at the end of the meeting. Please take that opportunity to hang out, get to know some of the other members. We also like to find out, how did you find the club? What was your interest? What particular interest in astronomy do you have? Just most of us are friendly. So come on up and chat with us after the meeting. We'd love to meet you a little bit more.
Also, please note, if you are a new member or if you're just interested, you can definitely come on Tuesday nights. We have more informal meetings every single Tuesday. So feel free to come out, get some more help, ask some questions. We're there to help you. So by all means, come out. Please note that next week, in that vein, Jeff will be running the meeting because I'm not available that week. And then the week after, Tuesday falls on July 4th. So we figured we should probably cancel that one. So yes, every Tuesday into perpetuity except the 4th. And I guess if there's any other major holidays that land on a Tuesday, we'll have to consider that as well. So every now and then we do cancel for holidays and stuff. But the rest of the time, what's that?
I can barely hear on Zoom. Somebody said.
Did Jack say something?
There's something in the chat.
He says you can't hear him? I don't know how we can fix that.
Oh, so it says, okay.
Jeff,
Can we have a mic check for the Zoomers?
I can hear you fine, Jeff. I can hear Rob.
Okay. Yeah, good then. Maybe it's on their end then. All right, so next item on the agenda, I think, Bob, you wanted to say something about the astronomical league, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you turn that on?
Yep.
I'll come up here, otherwise you won't be able to hear
Yeah.
probably. As a DOS member, you're eligible if you want to join the Astronomical League. It's $7.50 a year. That's a July membership for a year. You get a copy of the Reflector magazine with that. Lynn King is our coordinator for that. So if you want to work on observing awards and things like that, she coordinates all of that. So what is the Astronomical League? It's a group of astronomical societies, 240 different societies, and DOS is a member of that. So that's why you guys can be a member if you want to be a member of the Astronomical League. And it promotes astronomical education and observing. So one of their biggest things they have is observing awards. So they have 65 or so different observing programs you can do. And they're urban, they can be urban, they have all sorts of different things. They can be beginners, advanced, some of them are imaging, some of them are observing. So they got all sorts of different observing awards. They're kind of like MERD badges. They have a whole list of requirements, and you do those requirements, just give it to Lynn and she'll send it in. You'll get a nice little certificate and pin that you can wear in your hat. So anyone that's interested in the Astronomical League, you can join that. $7.50. You can either pay me here or the Focus has instructions on how to sign up. So, and you can just sign up through that. So that's all I had.
Very nice.
Unless there's
Thank you.
questions.
Thank you. Okay, great. Next thing, Bill Hannigan, you wanted to say something about the agency?
Sure.
You're probably good there.
Get up here just in case.
Ah.
Okay. So the Astrophotography Special Interest Group will meet this next Friday, 7:30 p.m. at Mark Mitchell's house. And the announcement's already gone out on groups.io. So if you're interested in coming, please send me an email so we can add it to the count. So Mark knows how many people they're ready for. And Nico is going to be our speaker. He's going to give a talk titled "Bringing Out the Dimmest Details." And the rest of the information's in the announcement on groups.io. All right, thanks. And of course, you people that are interested in astrophotography, got to join up.
And just to jump onto something Bill had mentioned, a groups.io for any new members. So you probably received emails. Rob will send out an email every now and again to our official email list, but only a couple of officers have that. So for general day-to-day inter-club communication, we use a service called groups.io. If you go to the club website, there's a section for how to join. It's incredibly simple. You just simply write one email and you're then on and you're not going to get slammed. I mean, there's probably a dozen emails in a month that go around. But go to the website, look at the instructions for joining the groups.io. It's really, really critical because due to the nature of the weather around here, sometimes people will plan last minute observing runs and they'll invite people to join them. That will happen over the groups.io, announcements about the book club and the AP-SIG and other activities. So really super essential to get really connected into the club to join the groups.io.
So if you look right up here, I have the mouse on the correct button you should click, and it'll give you the instructions about where to send the email. I think most of the new members have actually joined because
Cool.
I already approved them, but it's a couple steps. You just got to send the email. I receive it, I reply, and then it goes in the system. It's pretty quick. There's like a couple emails go back and forth, and then it's all done.
Do mine right now. Would you mind right now?
Oh, as a demo? No, because you wouldn't be able to see everything.
You can do if you got a smartphone, you could do it right now.
You could, and then
Yeah.
I'll check it as soon as I can. Yeah, certainly.
No one question, roughly where is Mark Mitchell's home?
It's in the Sanford, Bridge Development in Hopes.
Okay.
East side of Hopes.
Okay.
And,
On Aston Circle.
and the specifics are probably in your email, right?
And the specific,
So please note that this summer, of course, we will not have more of these monthly meetings for the next couple of months. Our next monthly meeting will be September. So over the next couple of months, we'll be meeting weekly, every single Tuesday, having our astronomy workshops, with the exception of July 4th, right? Of course. But also we have AP-SIGs every month, and we have book club meetings every month. And we also will have observing companies. We'll go out to dark sky sites. We have the Friday Night Lights events. That was like an outreach event and a really fun event for us too. We have a couple events at Woodside Farm Creamery. And actually, I could just bring that up here and you can see it.
Yeah. Fortunately, Woodside is supposed to be this Friday in the torrential downpour that they're predicting.
Oh, yeah.
We need the rain, but just not that day.
Yeah, next month there will be another. So we have them once a month as well. And we have events at Bellevue. So we have a whole bunch of events coming up. And we're in the planning stages for the DS picnic. We just were planning that. Do you remember what date that was?
No.
First year date. I'm sorry. We will send that information. Thank you. On my calendar. Yeah, Perseid meteor shower there. We're hoping to have that event kind of in the afternoon going into the evening. So hopefully we can do some observing that night, but hopefully also get a couple of views of the sun with the solar scope before that goes away as well. So we hopefully will do a little bit of observing that night. So it should be pretty fun. That's all the things that I have to announce right now. We are technically in the planning stages of the intro to astronomy class that we're hoping to hold this fall. So people who are really excited about learning about astronomy, we're working on that. It's not quite ready to announce yet, though.
Is there a book club announcement?
Do we have a book club announcement, Mary?
Yes, we do. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, Mary, 1 second, just to further pick and embarrass our new members, sir, if you wouldn't mind showing us your sweatshirt. It says so many books, so little time. Mary, I couldn't think of a better segue for you.
Thank you, Jeff. That's wonderful. I'd like to say good evening to everyone and welcome to our new members. And I'm delighted we have at least one potential avid book club member. That's wonderful news. On that note, I'd like to remind everyone on next Thursday, June 29th, we will be discussing at 7 p.m. via Zoom, The End of Astronauts, Why Robots Are the Future of Exploration by Donald Goldsmith, a PhD in astrophysics, and Martin Rees, who is the Astronomer Royal in England. Donald Goldsmith, I'm delighted to say, will be joining us. He may not be with us for the entire discussion, but because of travel plans, but he should be with us for at least a portion of the meeting. And the delightful Chris Trunk, who is a member of both the DAS and the Chester County Astronomical Societies, who is extremely insightful, will be leading the discussion. So I hope you and your guests will join us. Members of the DAS and their guests are always welcome. We also are a member of the Delaware Library System, so any member of the library system is also welcome to join us. I would like to also just quickly point out we've got two book changes in August. In light of the anniversary of the 100th anniversary of Stellophane, we will be reading The Heavens Declare the Glory of God, How a Group of Enthusiasts Learned to Make Telescopes and become amateur astronomers by Albert C. Ingalls. That is the article which really set Stellophane, gave it its publicity, and is a critical article to read in its history. So we hope you'll be able to join us for that discussion. And then in light of the death of Dr. Owen Gingrich, the esteemed Harvard professor, we've decided to also change the November read to the book Nobody Read by Dr. Gingrich, which will also simultaneously help us to mark the 550th anniversary of the birth of Copernicus. So I hope look at the DS website. Go to the members section, drop down to DAS Book Club, and you'll see our reading list for the year moving into 2024. I thank you.
Thank you. All right, do we have any other announcements before Fred's presentation? All right, Fred, you want me to?
I'll take it from here, Rob.
Something else? Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, so
Like this.
a couple of things for tonight's program. First of all, I always like to do things backwards sometimes. So we will not have a formal meeting in July or August, but as Rob said, we will have our astronomy workshop informal meetings most of the Tuesdays, all but one. But our first meeting of the new season will be the third Tuesday of September. And per DAS tradition, as long as I can remember, our September meeting, we always call What I Did This Summer, which is an opportunity for various club members to give little mini presentations about any interesting activities that they did over the summer. And we can use the summer in loose terms. And I would also say if you did something astronomical related, that would be interesting to share. Obviously, we'd love to hear it. But if it's something that was cool and not necessarily astronomically related, we probably would be interested to hear that too. We've had a lot of people that take cool trips for vacations, and it's cool to hear the adventuresome trip. So
I can get out of here.
yeah, as you go through your summer, think, is this something the DAS might be interested in hearing? Probably a few weeks, maybe early September, I'll start soliciting club members to offer little mini talks for the September meeting. So that's the future. Back to today. We will start off with Fred has a little talk about an outreach event that is coming up.
Just make sure you share the screen first.
Oh,
No Zoom people see that.
okay. And if you want to hear,
Just click the.
oh, that's this.
Yeah.
We'll do the screen. Yeah.
That'll work.
And let's just do this. Well, why is that there? Hello? Maybe, oh, hold on, let me try. Bear with me here. Let's see. Can we pin
Yeah.
this and then do this?
Yep.
And then, holy smokes, it worked. All right, Fred, all you.
I'm Fred DeLucia. I want to thank everyone for showing up to hear my talk tonight. I have such a huge draw. I'm gonna start charging for this. You want to push the button for me? Yep. Okay, don't push it yet.
Oh, okay,
I'll let you
I'll
know.
push your buttons.
Friday Night Lights is something that we've participated in every year since about 2014, 2015. It's sponsored by Natural Lands, which is a conservancy organization. They generously lend us their grounds for us to do observing or imaging or sketching at. They also lend us lend the Chesman Astronomical Society, another club I belong to, for their meetings at the Crow's Nest every month. And so what Natural Lands does, it's an outdoor event where they have a couple of bands, they have food vendors there, and they invite the local astronomy clubs to come out, set up the telescopes, and share views of the skies with their attendees. It's usually a sold out event of anywhere from 700 to 800 attendees. And usually anywhere from 30 or 40 telescopes set up. So next slide there, please, Sarah. So I'll tell you, it's July 14th. It's from 7 to 10 p.m. And what I'm here to do is try to muster up as many volunteers as possible to bring your telescopes out and set them up on the field to share with the attendees of the event. Next. So by June 24th, I have to give the Natural Lanes a list of the volunteers and their guests. Any telescope volunteer, anyone who brings a telescope to share views with the public, can bring 2 guests with them. You can bring more than 2 guests if you want to pay the admission fee of like $55 or so. And then next slide. So if you're bringing a telescope, we like you to get there between 5 and 6 p.m. So you're there before the crowds and normal attendees arrive, so that we're out of the way of the traffic that comes in for the event. And next one there, please. Now, a slight problem with this event that usually
We've had the event in the past. The moon's been up, there's been several planets out, but this time we're in the dark window. Also, the event starts at 7 p.m. It ends at 10.
Mhm.
So astronomical twilight doesn't end until 15 minutes before the event ends. And even then, the vendor lights are still on, so they can sell their food and pass out their wine and beer and stuff. So it's going to be kind of a challenging night. So I expect there's going to be a lot of conversation of people coming up and saying, "Oh, what kind of telescope is this?" So we get to be ambassadors of our telescopes, basically.
So we'll have no moon and no real good.
We'll have
planet.
Mars. We'll have Mars for a little while. And we can probably identify some double stars. And I think Venus sets pretty early at night too. One year when it was a dark window, we had Saturn for most of the night, which was a big hit. Every telescope on the field had Saturn in there. And
At what time are the ambassadors supposed to leave?
well, we can leave whenever we want, as long as the event's not over. So we can stay the entire night if we want. Because afterwards, we can stay observing after the vendors pack up their wares. What we usually do, I'll walk up and down the lines, tell everybody that, the show's over, start packing up your equipment. But what you really need to do is cap your eyepiece, point the telescope in a direction that's not at the sky, and let the people know who are at the scopes that, the event's over. We can stay observing for the entire night for as long as we want. Since there'll be a dark window and the vendors are out of there within the hour, so I suspect by about 11 o'clock, 11:30, the field's going to be clear. We'll have the night to ourselves. And it should be fairly, the skies there are about 5.5 mag naked eye limiting magnitude. So it's about a half mag darker than what it is here at Mount Cuba, and a full mag darker than it is on my driveway. So you can see the DSOs and the brighter galaxies fairly well. Next one, please. And as I just said, after the event ends at 10, we can stay observing as long as we like after the vendors leave the property. When the vendors start to break down, the floodlights come on. So the cars can leave without running over people. And but like I said, by 11 o'clock, 11:30, that'll all be shut down usually. The next one, please. There are a few differences here. Now, last year they had their COVID restrictions in their COVID precautions rather in play. Next one. They're going to have some people they want at least 20 telescopes there just to handle the crowd. They think that less than 20, it gets kind of crazy. Because we end up having lines there. A number of the attendees probably had a few too many beers and too many glasses of wine, and they have to stumble up the hill to get to the telescopes, and it could get kind of funky.
Fun.
Yeah. So it's good to have as many telescopes there as possible so we can spread out the damage.
Some of them won't be able to make it up the hill.
Yeah, I've seen that happen. People are hopping their way up the hill, they just stop, they shake their head, they turn around and go back down.
You'll be amazed how many people think that solid Dobsonian tube there can be leaned on.
Yeah.
They're not-
And it just goes,
They go right over it.
next one there, please, sir. Okay, so they're going to provide some volunteers to hand out masks for people who want them. And any of the astronomers there want masks, they'll have them there, or you can bring your own.
Fred, that's to obscure our identity.
Just to hide the innocent, yes. Next, please. We can bring 2 guests per astronomer. Bring more than 2 guests. The extra will have to purchase the tickets through the website on the Natural Lands website. Next, please. And we're going to be at the top of the hill behind the stage. So we're going to be behind the band, well behind the band. We'll be able to hear the bands. We will see the event going on, but we won't be able to be in front of the band, listening to the band, unless it's so cloudy out that we're not going to be able to show people things for our scopes. There's going to be trash cans, recycling cans near us. So you want to direct people to get rid of their stuff if they're for drinking. Next there, please. Oh, in the past, several years past, they provided us tickets to have free beverages. They're not doing that anymore. If you want beer, you got to buy it. But they are going to have water and non-alcoholic drinks available at the Red Natural Lands tent. Yes, ma'am.
Can you bring your own?
I don't know.
I
Don't
mean,
tell
how are they
me.
gonna find out? Shirts.
I mean, bring your own alcohol,
Bring your own whatever you want. Food.
bring your own whatever you want. Depends what you're bringing, I guess, so long as it's legal. Next, please. Elliot, upon your arrival, well, look for me. Because I'm gonna have a list of names and stickers to stick on your chest, you can stick on your own chest. And stickers for your guests to use too, so that they can get in without having to pay. Next, please. Okay, so I have craft beer and wine, that we're gonna have food trucks there. We can buy the food. The food there usually pretty good. They're gonna have Stargazer's Vineyard, a gourmet jerk shack food truck, the Brothers Food Truck, and under there, whatever that is, the munchie machine. Thank you. And next, please. Next, please. Thank you. Okay, well, we're supporting a great cause by doing this, but it's like I said, it's a conservancy organization, and they also very accommodating with us to have observing sessions there. We're usually at the drop of a hat, minutes notice. Sometimes I call them the same day, and they'll give us permission to use the field for observing. If you are going to bring 1 or 2 guests, the online sales close Friday, July 14th at noon. General admission is $55 for people, as if the event's not sold out. Gates are open at 6, but we need to be there between 5 and 6 and set up before the gates actually open. Next, please. Live music by these guys, Billy Walton Band and the Goots in the Motion Band. Next. Photos from prior Friday Night Lights. That's the crowd. That's what it generally looks like. Next, please. That's when they're getting kind of dusty. There's the telescope guys up there. Back. Yeah. Next, please. Next, please. They usually have s'mores roasting over an open fire. And there's Telescope Hill. We line up. This is a different site that we had on a prior year, which didn't work out too well. So they put us back up on the hill. One year we weren't able to use this hill because the a major donor of the site, Jerry Lindfest, he was a Civil War, a very big supporter of the Civil War, Revolutionary War reenactors. And they didn't want this, they were going to do a reenactment here the week after the week before that we were doing the event. And they didn't want the lawn mowed, the grounds mowed. They wanted it high so they can march through the ground. So that's why we had to set up there. Next, please. And that's an overhead drone shot. There's the scopes out there. I always try to set us up in like a horseshoe. It doesn't really work out like a horseshoe though. And we usually come in, you open the gate somewhere down here. We drive up this road here and right out to where we set up. And next, please. So it's Friday Night Lights, July 14th. Bring 2 guests, free admission. Next one, please. And email me, fredworld@verizon.net. And another question there? Need to leave the room?
I've got one.
Yes.
Aside from just providing hardware, are there any other duties assigned to?
No, but basically it's the same
Show up
thing.
with the scope.
Yeah, show up with scope, and it's basically the same duties we have as doing a regular start party.
Okay, thank you. How's the bug situation?
Bring off, repellent, D, whatever you do. Yes, sir. Hang on, one at a time.
I use photo equipment to, I mostly do astrophotography, so this is a good excuse to buy a telescope.
Okay, there we go. You want to give a plug for the club?
Yeah, I'll also throw into that mix. If anyone would like to participate in this event or any of our outreach events and you do not have a telescope, the club has about 10 loaner telescopes that are all fairly easy to use. Most of them we can teach you to use it in about 5 minutes. And you can also borrow the telescopes if you just want to use it, not for outreach, but I usually throw the plug in conjunction. We typically let people borrow them. We say for maybe a month or 2, because in a month or 2 you might get 1 or 2 clear nights out in this area. But if you're interested in borrowing a telescope, either for outreach or just for general purposes, again, reach out to one of the officers.
That's totally incompatible with the plan.
Yes. And we won't tell that to anyone who you don't need us to tell that to, because we'll sign any paper that says, yes, exactly. Or we can write a doctor's note.
So far, I have about 10 volunteers from DAS who've already signed up. I got 8 more from the Chesmont Club. And I'm told there are 6 from the Chester County Astronomical Society. So got about 24 volunteers so far. So we got one more, 25.
Nice.
26.
You're not coming with this big monster?
I don't think Jack's allowed out, because it is new addition. New addition of things we quarantine yet.
I'm on the phone, Fred. Yeah, I'm stuck in for 4 more weeks,
4 more weeks.
but the scope's almost done. Now they're doing the balancing work right now.
Okay. Any other questions?
Do people usually stick around afterwards to do like imaging?
No, because oftentimes the guests want to leave.
But I think the question is, there'd be nothing to,
Yeah, it's nothing to stop you.
yeah.
Other than the
My
clouds,
wife's gonna wanna go home.
Right.
She's not gonna want us to go.
other than clouds. Yeah.
It's cloudy out or raining.
What's going on
Well,
here?
if it's raining, it'll probably get cold off,
That's what.
right? But if it's cloudy out, it's a cloud or shining event. And even if it's cloudy, they ask us to keep our scopes set up, because people come up and they start asking questions about the telescopes. And sometimes, and since it's gonna be light out, you can still look at a tree or something. Yeah, that's good. Okay, thanks everyone.
All right. Now for our main talk for the night, if I introduce the speaker too much, I'd probably be giving away his presentation. But we are joined by Nico Carver, who is a former, well, still active, once a member, always a member, former DAS member. And I would say the simplest way to introduce is newfound professional astronomer / celebrity. Again, if I introduce Nico any more than that, I would be literally giving his talk. But Nico, welcome back to Delaware. And you want to sit here and drive? Okay. Yeah, I will. We'll allow him to get what he wants to get first. Go for it, Nico. Oh, typical protocol, if the people on Zoom could mute yourselves. And if you want to use the chat, you're welcome to, but nobody on this end is going to be monitoring it. So if you have a question, I guess, Nico, I leave it to you if you want people to interrupt or wait till the end.
You can interrupt.
Okay.
Nico, is that a public?
And are we?
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right, Nico, all yours.
Thanks, everyone. And so, yeah, as Jeff said, I was a active member of the Delaware Astronomical Society for a number of years, and I still feel like this is my home club because this is where I got my start in astronomy. And I've joined 3 other clubs since leaving Delaware, and none of them are the same. This is the best club, I can tell you.
Yeah.
It's the right size to like meet people, but like you also are super active. Like you have all this different stuff going on. I won't get into all the different clubs I've joined, but none of them are the same. They don't have like the same feel. So great job, everyone, the board, and thanks for having me down. It's been a lot of fun to put this together and hopefully you enjoy it. So as Jeff said, I'm now full-time doing astronomy. I don't consider myself a professional necessarily, because I did work with professional astronomers, which I'll get to, but I am sharing what I do on YouTube full-time. So sort of interesting how that happened. We'll get to that.
Canadian smoke?
Yeah, that's right. And 2023 has been awful. I mean, anytime I have a clear night, it's just been hazy and not good. All right, so when I was thinking about my journey, I decided to go back before I had any experience with amateur astronomy. 10 years ago, I moved up here, maybe 10, 11 years ago. So I got a job at the University of Delaware, and what I did have experience with was cameras and filmmaking. And so that's why I got this job, because I was in the multimedia center, which is in the basement of the library. What we did is, if you think of like a college writing center, they help students with papers and essays. We help people with podcasts and graphics and videos. And that's actually now a big part of an undergraduate education. They're trying to get them ready for the 21st century. So we teach them how to use video editing and all of that. And the most popular assignment was making a finished like mini documentary. So
I was teaching people how to do this, and one of the problems we had was once they got done, the file size was too big to just like email to their professor. So what we had them do was upload it to YouTube and send the professor the link. And so I was the technical help for the University of Delaware, helping people get all these videos up onto YouTube. And I wasn't thinking about me being on YouTube at all at the time, but it sort of did prepare me a little bit for what YouTube was going to become. And it's gotten a lot bigger in the past 10 years. The other thing that I was doing there was teaching people complex software on the computer, and they were brand new to it. So if a teacher wanted to have their students learn Adobe Photoshop, they would call on me, and I'd get in front of a class like this and try to teach them Adobe Photoshop for the first time. And that's really hard because it's so overwhelming with some of these pieces of software, where to click and how to do it. And so I got very used to talking through what was on the screen and being like, now I'm clicking over here and repeating myself and all of this. And it's just funny, all of that has become useful for what I'm doing now on YouTube too. But when I got really into astrophotography for the first time was my first big vacation away from UD. And I decided I wanted to see the Aurora Borealis. So I went to Iceland in the middle of the winter. Very cold, a lot of blowing ice. The roads were not good, but it was definitely worth it to go that time of year because the shows were spectacular. This was the first night I was there, and I was just looking out sort of the side of my SUV that I rented, and I saw something off on the horizon. And then by the time I got out and set up my camera, it was from horizon to horizon. How much is that sped up? This is sped up about, this is about 30 minutes down to like 5 seconds. Oh, so really, Yeah, so it's a lot slower in person. You can see how much the stars are moving in this shot. Yeah. But this is what I was interested in at the time. What Jeff just asked about, how much is this sped up? This is time-lapse photography, where you take each one of these frames in the video is a single 15-second exposure, and then you sequence them all together and play it back at 30 frames per second. So it really speeds up the time. Here's another one. This is another night. And this is at a famous place in Iceland for shooting the aurora called the Jökulsárlón Glacier Lagoon. And something interesting, I don't know if you can see it, along that coast there, you see all the other photographers setting up? Yeah. And so there were photographers from all over the world there. There was Japanese photographers, Australians, and it was interesting just meeting them and getting some tips for how to shoot this.
Is your tripod syncing?
What was going on here is I was getting really into time lapse, so I had one of these motorized tracks just to add a little bit of extra motion to the shot. When I got home, I realized a single exposure could be brightened up, and you can see like a lot more colors. You can start to see like the pink there, right? When you brighten it up, you can see just how far it extends. And I didn't know what I was doing in terms of processing astrophotography, so I just used like a slider and just said, make it brighter. But even that, I was amazed at how much came out from the darkness, right? So over there on the right-hand side, if you see that little red glow, that's the glow from an active volcano that was in the middle of the island at the time. Okay, and then I was only thinking of astrophotography as something I would do on vacation, right? Because it's like, you go to a nice dark spot on vacation and you might as well take some cool pictures. But I started maybe planning my vacations a little bit to go places that were dark. So this was Spruce Knob Lake in July 2015. And for anyone that's not been down there, it's in West Virginia on a mountaintop. There's a campground there that's really nice. The ranger was definitely a character, and there's a lake there, so you can sort of have nice horizons and everything. But this was just from my campsite, just looking up through the trees. And when I was putting together this presentation, I realized I could see the North American Nebula right there. So this is actually probably my first shot of a nebula, but I just didn't realize it at the time. So I was just focused on the Milky Way. Now, part of the reason I thought you could only do astrophotography from dark sites is because this is where I lived, Newark, Delaware, and just walking it out into my backyard, there were house lights and street lights everywhere. So even if I could see, the stars a little bit, there was so much glare from the street lights that it just felt like there was nothing there most of the time.
And so this is actually, these two shots were taken just one night apart, just to give you an idea, just a 6-hour drive, and you can see so many more stars. But sometime in 2015, and I was trying to rack my brain and figure out when I actually was starting to do some research about backyard astrophotography. But I think when I was doing that, I stumbled across the Delaware Astronomical Society's website. And this was sort of opened my mind a lot, because I realized by just browsing the website that people were doing this in this area, in Newark, in Hockessin, in Wilmington, which I had no idea. Again, I was just sort of thinking you only do this, you know, at exotic little places like Death Valley and Iceland and stuff like that. So I actually was sort of shy and didn't really know if I should just show up at a meeting. So before I knew anything, so I wanted to like get a little bit of a experience on my own. So I did buy this AstroTrack, which is, I don't know if it's made anymore, but it's a nice device. It's sort of like a barn door tracker in that it moves these arms along a threaded rod, and then you have to rewind it. But it worked really well. And within a few nights, I was able to produce that image, and that's just straight from my camera. So I was amazed by this, this is that same backyard you saw earlier from Newark, Delaware, where you can barely see the stars, but with just this simple device and a DSLR and a lens, you can see the colors of Orion Nebula in a single exposure. That blew my mind. I couldn't believe that you could do that with just such a simple setup and a few nights experience.
Who got that data?
No, I pulled this from my Instagram. I don't know where it is. I have so many hard drives. I have all these external hard drives, 4 terabytes each, and I have like 40 of them now. And you know, people have told me, well, you should get a NAS, and I'm like, I have all that too, and it's just unmanageable. So my first meeting here in this room was an AP-SIG meeting, and it was great. I produced a couple stacked images that I shared, and it got great feedback. And then I remember the presentation was by Bill, and it was on signal to noise ratio. And there were slides about quantum efficiency of CCD sensors. And I didn't know what a lot of this meant at the time, but it really excited me to like research this, because I think I realized that with astrophotography, there's like a core knowledge base you sort of have to attain, and then you can apply that knowledge practically in the field. But like, if you just try to go out into the field and have no idea what you're doing, it's a lot more difficult than if you read first and sort of studied it a little bit. So I loved that there was monthly meetings about astrophotography. I tried to attend the AP-SIG every month after that. And then just a couple nights after that, Bill, Rob, and I met up, and we got this lunar transit of the International Space Station. So it's going to start again here. 3, 2, 1. And you can see just how fast that is. But this is a great thing. Even if you're not into astrophotography, you can see this visually. Now, the trick is you can't blink, right? Because if you do, you're going to miss it. Because the ISS passes usually somewhere between a half a second and 1.5 seconds is across the full disk of the moon or the sun. There's a website you can go to, transitfinder.com, to figure out when this is going to come up in your area.
Usually they come up with a range.
Yeah. Another thing that I found great about DAS was that you have the Sawin and the Newtonian. Because at this point, 2016, I didn't own a telescope. All I owned was a Canon DSLR and a zoom lens and that AstroTrack. But with that Canon DSLR, I could put it onto the 12-inch GSO Newtonian and the Sawin and get images like this. So it's a great resource. I definitely recommend people use the observatory here or the Loner telescopes before you can afford a telescope. But I did go down the equipment rabbit hole. By the summer, I bought a used Orion Atlas mount, a Skywatcher doublet, and some other things. I was using an old computer I had. This is at Trap Pond State Park. I don't know if the Delmarva Stargazers are still, no,
They don't even exist.
they're not around.
Yeah.
Okay, well, they were another club that was pretty cool, and they organized a nice star party at this park.
Southern Delaware.
Yeah. But I was able to get images like you see on the right. I went after the bright popular targets, of course, that everyone does in their first year of astrophotography, like the Trifid and
You're welcome to move your picture around if
sure.
it's blocking anything.
the Rho Ufiuki. complex here. This one's a little bit hard from this far north, but there's a few times, this time of year actually is pretty good. Yeah, it rises, in like around 1 a.m. around this time, or maybe midnight. And you can get it from this.
Do you need a campsite to,
A what?
a campsite for Trap Pond?
It was an organized star party. I don't know what.
I think most of the time I did get a campsite because, well, and even with the campsite, sometimes I got locked in there. It's sort of weird. It's sort of weird. You want to talk to the rangers there, I think. Yeah.
You can get locked in the campsite, but you can get locked in on the park side. So that's why it's a good idea to get in the campsite.
Okay, that's it. Okay, then, like a lot of people, I went through a lot of experimentation in 2017. So this is sort of 2 years into the deep sky stuff, or maybe 1 year in, and I tried out a lot of different things. This was a dual rig, so 2 telescopes and 2 cameras on one mount. Do you still have this scope in the DAS, the Brandon?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's a really nice telescope that I loaned, or
You borrowed
borrowed. Yeah, borrowed, and tried it out, and it was amazing. I mean, that's a really nice telescope. I put just the reducer flattener I had for my Skywatcher onto it, and that worked pretty well because they were similar focal lengths, focal ratios. I did then try a Newtonian on my Orion Atlas because I thought that Newtonian and the Salwin is working so well, I should try a Newtonian. And it didn't work for me. I think I just didn't have the patience at the time to work out all the issues. And then also in the Salwin, you have the observatory walls, protecting you from any kind of wind. And I think this one was just too big. I can't remember if I got an 8-inch or a 10-inch, but I was just not happy with the stars. Then I started experimenting with going back to a camera lens, but using a mono camera. And that's where I found like I was just really happy with what I was producing. Part of it is that these kinds of objects that are really large in the sky, they really work well with a telephoto lens because you have a lower focal length, like 200 millimeter focal length, but it's a fast focal ratio at f2.8. So you can really capture a lot of data and fill the frame with something like the Spaghetti Nebula or the Flying Batting Squid. And these are now more popular targets, but in late 2017, they were a little bit more uncommon to see, I guess, for people to capture them. And then this is, of course, the Heart and Soul Nebula. So this is around the time that I was like, I'm feeling a little bit more confident in what I'm doing. I wanted to try making a YouTube video because that's what I was doing in my day job, is teaching people how to make YouTube videos. So I thought I could do that. On my first YouTube video, I spent 6 months figuring out how to put it together, how to script it, what I wanted to say. And I sort of approached it like I approached teaching at the University of Delaware, where I took all of my thoughts, wrote them all down, tried to then condense it to fit it within an hour. And why an hour? That's how long I had at the University of Delaware to teach a class. So it just felt natural to me. So I started with a lot more material. I was trying to just sort of put the whole kitchen sink into one video, and then I just tried to condense it down to something that made sense. So what I ended up covering was just my equipment at the time, talking through each piece of equipment and what it does. And I approached it not knowing who the audience was, as if they know nothing. So if I used a term like a refractor, I explained what that meant. And I did that all throughout the video, and that seemed to work pretty well. But a lot of people think, if they go back to this video, because it has 200,000 views, that it was an instant success. The first month, it only got 197 views. And most of that was probably from family and people like you. Yeah. So, and you can see +5 subscribers. It wasn't a huge overnight kind of thing. But then what happened is it just kept getting played. It kept getting suggested on YouTube. And so this past month, it still got 831 views. And if you do an average of the months that it's been up, 47 months, it's gotten about 436 a month. And so this is sort of what YouTube can do. You can have a long tail on a video, basically meaning it can continue getting views if people want to continue watching it, and the topic or the ideas in the video don't go stale. So this one, since it's just sort of an overview, even if you don't have this exactly the same equipment, it could still be relevant to someone starting out.
Still got that 86mm lying around?
Yes, I still use, this is a Stellar View 86. I still use that scope a lot. Then on one of these early videos, I got this comment that said, can you create a video showing your workflow for a basic capture of M42? I'm new to DSO imaging. You get a lot of comments on YouTube and you sort of have to weed through what you think is valuable. But I thought this one was a good idea, so I went for it. And it ended up being 2 hours and 17 minutes. And I was like, this seems like a very long video. I don't know if people are going to be willing to sit through this, but it has everything that I want to say. And surprisingly, it did really well. 10.9 thousand views in the first month. And at that time, I thought when it sort of spiked like that 2 weeks in, I was like, this is going viral. I can't believe this. Now my perceptions of success have changed so much. If I had a 10,000 views in the first month, I'd be like, this is such a failure. So it's funny how like your perceptions of what is viral video sort of changes over the years. But that one still gets views too. I also couldn't call this an evergreen kind of video where there's always going to be people interested in using basic equipment and seeing the whole process start to finish. Now, this was my biggest success to this point. So then what did I follow it up with? Taking a whole year off of YouTube. Now, looking back, it's probably not a great idea. Whenever you take a big break from YouTube, people sort of start forgetting about you and all that. But I had a few reasons. One of them is that I sadly had to move away from Delaware because I accepted a position at the Center for Astrophysics as a librarian. And I really enjoyed that, but it was pretty time consuming at first because I was just learning everything, everything about that place as an institution, because part of my job was preserving the history. The Harvard College Observatory is one of the oldest observatories in the US, and there's so much stuff that happened there, and there's records of all of it. It's all still right there. None of it's moved. All the glass plates, all the notebooks, everything. And so it's a treasure trove of astronomy history and astrophotography history. And one of the things I got to do was work with the notebooks of the astronomers that have worked there since the 1820s. So people like Pickering, Annie Jump Cannon, who's a Delawarean and invented the stellar classification system we still use. Lots of other people, Cecilia Payne, exactly, whose genius thesis revolutionized everything. It's kicked off what we now call astrophysics. So amazing place to work. Another highlight is the person who was the lead of the black hole imaging project worked there, Chef Dolman. I got to meet him. So lots of cool stuff happening, but I sort of dropped off of YouTube. Another reason is I had all these resources at the University of Delaware. I ran that multimedia center, so I had all the lights and microphones and everything that I needed. Then I got to Boston. Things were 3 times more expensive, and I didn't have any of that stuff. So I felt sort of at a loss for how to even make YouTube videos. But after a while, I decided I wanted to try again. And when I came back, this was my most requested topic. Just going through my comments on YouTube, everyone was asking me, how do you do narrowband imaging, which is a really nice technique for light polluted skies because it blocks most of the light pollution since you're just imaging in this very small band of light where the emission nebulae shine. So I put this video together and thought it was going to do really well because so many people were asking for it, and it totally flopped. And there could be a number of reasons for this. One, it just could be because I was away for so long. But then I made a number of more videos, probably 10 more in the next couple months, and they all flopped like that. And I realized what was going on was the topics that I was picking were all for experienced astrophotographers, which is actually a much, much smaller potential audience than something like I was doing before, which was truly a beginner topic. People that may be interested in astrophotography is a much bigger audience than people that are already doing it. Now, that's not to say that these kinds of videos aren't just as valuable, but to grow on YouTube, I didn't think this was how I was going to continue growing the channel. So I just was interested, and I thought, okay, I'm going to test this theory. I'm going to try to think of a topic that has the biggest potential audience. And this video was the one where I was just like, it went like a hockey stick, right? It was just like amazing how many people were interested in this one. Basically, it was like my previous video on Orion Nebula, but I decided I'm going to try it without a star tracker and without a telescope. So before I was using both a star tracker and a small telescope. This one, just a camera, a lens on a tripod. And I had never actually tried this technique before I made the video. I made the video and realized it worked and then just shared what I did. So you don't have to be an expert on YouTube. You can do something for the first time. It can still be super successful. Another thing that happened though was if we look at the date that this was published, it was March 2020. And what happened in March 2020? We had big lockdowns. So a lot of people were just getting into astronomy and astrophotography as a hobby. And with this video, it was telling them, you don't have to buy anything new. If you're already a hobby photographer, you can go out and do this right tonight. As I said, it was a new twist on a video that already did well. And then something that I sort of picked up on in the year I was taking off was I probably needed to get better at the intro to a video, the hook. And so let's see if this sound works. This is the hook for this video.
Are you a photographer? That's how I wanted to try astrophotography, but you weren't so sure about investing hundreds or even thousands of dollars into a hobby before you knew if it was for you. Well, then watch this video because I'm going to show you how you can capture and process a photo of the Orion Nebula with gear you might already have. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to be using 5 pieces of gear: the DSLR, a lens, a tripod, an inexpensive intervalometer. Because that's one is optional. This is a cheap black and white.
With a shot on?
Yeah, like a phone camera.
Oh,
You
just
said it's all really
just a DSLR, and yeah, at that point I rebought some things, so I had a big light, which helps with the sort of the cinematic nature of it. But yeah, just a normal DSLR camera.
No media centers.
No media center. So I was sort of back to basics. At the media center, I had more of like a cinema camera that was designed for filming, but ever since I've just been shooting on more normal cameras. I think at that point I maybe had the Canon RA, which is an astronomy camera, but I actually use it for filming the YouTube videos. So the point there is that hook worked, but I think it was also timing, right? People were willing to get into the hobby, and ever since then, my subscriber growth has just really taken off. And I sort of credit that video for being sort of what got me really into YouTube, because I saw how well it was doing, and I thought maybe I can continue doing this and really take it seriously. And so something on YouTube that often works is make the same kind of video, but do it slightly differently and better. And when you do that, you can have even more success. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do the same kind of thing. It's just going to be the same camera, the same lens and tripod idea, but I'll pick a different deep sky object that might work. And I think that people were even more interested in Andromeda Galaxy because the idea of capturing another galaxy feels even more exciting maybe than a nebula within our Milky Way. And then another thing that was happening was there was the COVID restrictions, but then we also had Comet Neowise. And whenever there's a big new comet, people get really interested in astronomy. Most astronomy equipment at that time was out of stock, or at least a lot of the beginner stuff was out of stock at most of the retailers. And so saying you can do this with normal photo equipment, I think also helps stand this video apart from other things that were up at the time. I also tried to really tighten it up. So that previous video was over 2 hours long, I think, and this one I tried to get under an hour. One thing that I was worried about, though, with just repeating myself, was eventually you run out of deep sky objects that you can do without a tracker. So I was thinking, what else can I do? And one thing I hadn't seen, and then a lot of sort of my YouTube thinking is thinking of things that I haven't seen, is really big shootouts. So trying to think of a kind of object like a light pollution filter and testing 6 or 7 of them at a time, or testing 5 to 6 fisheye lenses all against one another all on the same night. These kinds of videos are immensely difficult to do. I really have a lot more respect for reviewers because trying to remove all bias and get all of this done in a way where I feel confident that my results are accurate and that you can sort of trust them is a lot harder than you would think. So I still do these videos a lot now, but I did take a break from them in 2021, introduced a new series called 5-Minute Fridays, where I just tried to do more low effort videos. It was mostly just me in front of a camera talking for 5 to 10 minutes. Some of these I like, some I'm not so proud of, but what it was good for was getting sort of out of my normal way of doing a YouTube video, taking months to produce just one video and really getting more into the grind of it and feeling like, okay, I can make a video every week. But eventually making a video every week, I felt like I couldn't keep it up anymore and still make the bigger videos that I was interested in. Another thing with YouTube is finding concepts that will get people curious that maybe have no interest in any of this, but just because the thumbnail looks interesting and maybe you're providing some interesting context like astrophotography from $100 to $10,000, that whole cheap versus expensive thing works really well on YouTube across many different hobbies, because people want to know, well, what does a $130 telescope look like compared to one that's over $1,000? And what I found from the comments is that both people who have the cheap telescope and the expensive telescope feel validated by the results, right? Because the cheap telescope people think, you know, what a value, this is so great. The expensive telescope people can see those differences and they're like, oh yeah, of course the other ones didn't do so well in that test. So it really appeals to a broad base of people. Eventually my process for making a video has changed. What I start with now is ideas. And so I try to keep a brainstorm of all my YouTube ideas. It used to be that if I had an idea, I would just start on the video. Now, if I can't think up a good title and thumbnail for the video, I don't continue. Because I found that if people won't click on it, it's not really going to be worth my time to make it. But that is sort of hard, right? Because it's easy to just get in this mindset of, I have a good idea. I think a lot of people are going to click on it. But can I actually make that video, right? Because there's some ideas that you might have that might just be total clickbait. They're not actually good ideas. They might generate a really good title and thumbnail, but then you need to follow through too. It has to be actually useful information in some way, or your reputation is really going to take a nosedive. Then I do the actual astrophotography or testing, and I do not film during that. Other people I've seen on YouTube can somehow manage filming themselves and doing astrophotography or testing at the same time. I've never been able to do that. I get way too stressed out and it doesn't work for me. So I do this without filming myself. Then I write the script and then film myself. And the reason this works for me, the way that I do things, is I invested in a little teleprompter almost right away in YouTube. And what I do is I write a script exactly how I want to say it. And I'm reading a script whenever you see me on YouTube. I'm never talking off the cuff, but what I try to do is make it sound conversational. So you don't want the viewer to feel like you're reading a teleprompter, but for me, this is the only way I can make videos because I need to feel that control of, I'm saying exactly what I want to say in this video. And the only way for me to do that is through writing. It's just, I guess, my creative process. But the other thing that I found is that doing it this way, then when you get to editing, you don't have to do that many cuts, right? You can just put it down, you can put in all the B-roll, and everything is there that you want because you've just set it all in one long take. So at some point I thought, I'm going to go full time with this. It was not an easy decision and not a decision I made quickly. I sort of thought I might do it back in late 2020 or early 2021. And then it took me like 18 months before I finally committed to it. Part of it was money and just not knowing if like COVID was a bubble in terms of astrophotography and astronomy that was just going to crash as soon as COVID ended. I still don't know if that's true or not. I know OPT just closed. I don't know really what's going on with the hobby and how many people are going to continue to be interested, but one thing that made me feel like I could continue was my success on this platform called Patreon. And Patreon is crowdfunding for people that make things. So podcasters and YouTubers are probably the main people who use it. So if you have really dedicated fans. They can pay you like $1 a month or $3 a month or $5 a month. And when you get enough of those fans, I now have close to 1,000. It's actually a sizable amount that you can sort of depend on every month. And so part of the reason I felt like I could still go full time is my Patreon membership. It takes little spikes, but it's always still just sort of been steadily rising. And so now with Nebula Photos as a business, I get about 40% of my revenue from Patreon, 35% from YouTube ads and ad reads. So I've also been experimenting with these sponsorships. So if you watch one of my videos, I might say, this video is sponsored by Brilliant. Brilliant is this website where you can learn science and math and all that kind of stuff. And they'll pay a little bit more than the YouTube ads that sort of autoplay. Another sort of big chunk is affiliate links. So what these are is if you review a telescope or a camera or something on your YouTube channel, you might link to that product on one of these telescope stores, and then they give me a small commission, like 3% of the sales price, but the person who's clicking on the link, their price doesn't go up. And then I get a little bit of money from consulting and speaking fees. Part of the big reason why I was really excited about the going full time was it meant that I could move out of Boston. Boston is a really nice city, but for astrophotography, it means driving 2 to 2.5 hours every time I wanted to do it. I could do a little bit of narrowband, but even narrowband was hard because there just weren't that many places to set up where you have a good horizon in the city. So I was mostly driving down to Rhode Island or up to New Hampshire, which is where I ended up moving, in southern New Hampshire, which is a Bortle 3 spot. This is my yard. It's not, fully open. You can still see there's a tree line there, but it's pretty open in at least 2 directions. My house is down there. And this was in April when we had that aurora display with the big geomagnetic storm, and it was luckily clear in New Hampshire, so I was able to catch it. Going full time with this, I thought I was going to be spending a lot more time making YouTube videos, and I actually spend most of my day communicating with people online. Answering messages on my Patreon is my first priority because they're paying members of my community. But then I also answer questions in email, YouTube comments, Instagram, Discord, a bunch of different places. So I spend probably half of every day just answering people's questions or just having conversations about astrophotography. And one thing I really like about it is that I get to encourage people to keep up with the hobby. So I'll just read this recent message. I found focus for the first time ever at night, not on the moon, but bang, there were hundreds of stars where I saw nothing. Wow, was I psyched. It was your encouragement that brought me all that excitement. Yes, I did the work, but you lit the spark and kept relighting it before I could keep it going by myself. So a lot of what people want through this Patreon membership is not necessarily the information. You can find the information on YouTube or Google or all these different places, but just someone to be a mentor, someone to encourage them through the hobby, because it can get sort of discouraging. You're often doing it by yourself, nothing's going right. And just to have someone to message to say, nothing's going right. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And usually what I tell them is just to simplify, just focus on one thing at a time and just focus on those small victories. So I think what I told this gentleman right before this message was just try to get the camera in focus tonight. Don't worry about the electronic focuser or the ASI Air or any of these other devices. All I want you to do is just try to focus the telescope. And just making those small victories, eventually it all starts clicking and people can really become accomplished astrophotographers just making small steps at a time. So in terms of what's next for me, I found something, a reflection nebula, I think, in Cepheus that I cannot find anywhere in any catalogs of reflection nebulae. So I found it in an old image and it's very small in the image. So what I mean by trying to confirm it is I'm going to rent one of those telescopes in Spain and with a big aperture and just try to get a really good picture of it just to see what's there. But it looks like a classical blue reflection nebula that no one has taken a picture of. So I'm sort of excited about that. I'm gonna build a roll-off roof observatory in my backyard. And I'm sort of getting lots of tips right now for that and figuring out how to do it. And then my last sort of idea for the business is something that I haven't done yet, is writing books. And the idea that I'm most excited about is writing a series of books, one for each constellation. So there'd be like a Cygnus book, a Cepheus book. And instead of just going after the popular targets, I would try to be exhaustive. So every little target that's in each constellation, I would want a picture of. And also do like a big mosaic kind of picture, so you could have location finders and all of that kind of stuff. And so I thought that's a kind of book that's not on the market yet. And I'm a big astronomy book lover, so I thought that would be a cool idea. All right, thanks very much.
How did you handle not having your teleprompter tonight?
It's hard, you know. I always feel sort of like with presentations, like, oh, this doesn't feel right, and then not like looking into the camera and reading. And you know, some people get a lot more self-conscious looking into a camera. That's never been me. For some reason, presentations have always been much harder for me than camera work.
We're glad you suffered through it for us.
There is a book called The Constellation.
Okay.
That describes almost basically what you just said, but it's, you know, it's for observing with the telescope. So you might want to look that up, because it goes Cygnus and has all the objects. You can look at double stars, nebulas, and all that kind of stuff. So
That's great.
it's
Yeah.
actually in our library too.
Yeah. I mean, I know. Yeah. I
I
also.
understand, but then you got the basics with this book called The Constellation, but, you know.
Yeah,
Well,
there's
that,
sort of
that would be a
like-
pretty good starting list, because you could photograph anything you can see.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
and so that's.
For the reflection nebula you mentioned, are you gonna use telescope live for that? Or?
Yes, yeah, there's they have a 36-inch or something telescope in Spain that I'm gonna try it with. I think I already scheduled it, and it was supposed to happen a couple days ago, but then it got pushed back. I don't know if there's something going on in Spain too that preventing it, but yeah. So I did 4 hours of images, but I'm hoping with that huge aperture, it'll look like something.
Yeah.
Right now in the image, I took this image in 2019 and didn't see it when I took the image. But then I recently used StarNet version 2 on it, which was like a little bit cleaner at removing the stars. And all of a sudden, this little blue splotch popped out at me. I then went to the digitized sky survey done by Palomar, and it was definitely something there. So.
Just kind of curious, this might be a bit of a blurry event, but at what point in this journey you created would you say that you were contacted by other personalities in space? You're far from the first.
Yeah, so the first person I was contacted by was Helena Cochrane in Scotland. And so we've done 2 or 3 videos together. And then the second person was Trevor Jones at Astro Backyard. And then more recently, Yannick, who runs Quiv, the Lazy Geek. And all these people have reached out to me. I'm not good, I guess, about reaching out to people, but in any case, yeah, Yannick, I'm now messaging back and forth all the time, just because he's always coming up with, yeah, exactly. He's always coming up with new ideas and and sometimes ideas he doesn't want to do, and he shares them with me or something, and so. Oh, yeah, so Dave said, yeah, build the observatory big enough, yeah. I don't think I could want to do 3 piers, because I think at that point it's I don't know about how easy it is to move the roof, but I can at least do 2 piers, I think.
When I built mine, I thought it was big enough, but it's not really big enough.
I remember yours, yeah.
It works, but it's just tight.
Yeah.
Have you thought about selling prints and other kinds of merchandise?
No, not exactly. I have a higher Patreon tier now where if you sign up for it, I'll send you out a print of your choice. But I don't know about like just general print sales, just because I don't know if I have the time to sort of do the quality control.
There's some really good, like I do that, and there's some really good services you can use.
Okay.
Society 6 is surprisingly okay. The print quality is a bit hit and miss. You gotta be very selective with what you put to paper, as you probably noticed by now. Astrophotos on prints can be very hit and miss. But that's one of the ones that I recommend. It's enough. Does the job.
Jay, do you have a question?
I'm just curious, you have another YouTube channel that you like watching? Like a competitor?
Genuinely.
I don't, I don't actually watch a lot of the astrophotography channels just because I don't want them to influence me too much. The only one I really watched religiously is Helena's channel, just because she was the first person to reach out to me. What I do watch a lot of is general photography and camera channels, just because I like to see sort of how they've set up going full time and what kind of they're doing with their business and that kind of thing. So someone named Caleb Pike, DSLR video shooter, who I've been following for a long time, and I sort of like how he presents, and so sort of a model for what I was doing.
Yeah. You done any more of those like massive mosaics, like that 2-page spread in Sky and Telescope?
Yes, that one got expanded from, this is a mosaic in Cygnus, from 8 panels to 24 panels. And when I expanded it from 8 to 24, I had the middle part, and then I did panels all around. And if you do that, it goes from 8 to 24 panels. I couldn't process the data. I put it all into my computer. My computer just would run for 24 hours and then give me some kind of cryptic message, right?
You gotta work in some rack space.
And so I then waited a year and built a new computer, a new PC from scratch with enough RAM and processor power and all of this, and was finally able to get that one done. And then I didn't like the 24 panel as much as the 8 panel. I just didn't feel it looking right anymore. So it's a little bit of disappointment, but that's how things go. So but then for this book series idea, I want to do sort of like real kind of finder charts where it's like a huge mosaic, and you can sort of see these little overlays on top of like a real image of the full constellation. So I do want to get back into mosaic imaging, hopefully after the observatory is done.
Are there any questions from the folks on Zoom? Again, you may be muted, so.
Sorry, I couldn't be in the room tonight, Nico. Still in quarantine, but really appreciate the presentation. It's really interesting. Good to see you back in the neighborhood.
Thanks. Is that Jack?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jack just had a baby, that's what he was referring.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jack.
Well, yes.
Technically, it wasn't me that had the baby, it was Amy, but thanks, Jeff.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Do you feel the pressure of having to put out content?
Yes, yeah. There's
And how do you deal with that? But, and not by putting out content.
how do I deal with that?
Provide a clear night.
So I recently did this video, which was a little bit different for my channel, called something like Confession, I'm a Pixel Keeper. And it was a video where I wouldn't normally do a video like that, but it felt some kind of relief or something from my normal sort of schedule of doing videos. So I think what I've done when I felt that pressure is just to try to do something different, something that I've never done before. And it usually feels like a little bit of relief of this constant feeling like I'm behind. I have to continue to make these really excellent videos and that kind of thing. So, and then the other thing I've been thinking about is, and I sort of alluded to this in the presentation, it's like finding a topic where you think it can get 1 million views. That's a lot of pressure. And so I thought about doing a second channel where I don't feel like I'm chasing these view numbers and I can just sort of say whatever I want.
Okay. Any final questions? Otherwise, like
Yes.
to go again.
I have a question. Hello,
Oh, yep. We got a question. Oh, go ahead.
from the internet. Nico, could you discuss briefly the use of generative AI in the area of astrophotography?
Okay, I don't know that much about it. I did do a video, it's not generative AI, it was based on the large language models with ChatGPT. I did a video where I compared my answers to astrophotography questions versus ChatGPT's answers. It was interesting, it was a mixed bag what it could do. And of course, it's sampling all those kinds of things from answers on the internet. So it can pull randomly good answers and randomly mixed up bad answers. So
Nico, you're supposed to tell people, watch the video.
yeah. I think, okay, generative AI, that's what it's like, creates an image. I've also tried that. I just put in like a prompt of like, show me a realistic astrophotography image. And of course, what it generated had nothing to do with anything you could see out in space. It was just a random picture that looked like a nebula, but it wasn't one. So I don't know if we're going to see a lot more of that kind of thing, of people sharing astrophotography images that are just generated, but yeah, exactly. Sebastian said you can't plate solve it. So I guess a true astrophotographer can try to figure out if this is a real, and it might not be too hard, but yeah, I don't know what that holds.
So Nico, when you asked it to give you a nebula image, was that ChatGPT?
No, that was another one called DALL-E. I think it's by the same company. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's another generating images one called Midjourney.
A similar question on AI. I've seen some of these photographic tools for denoising and sharpening. Topaz is the one that comes to mind. Have you used any of those kind of tools in their AI?
Yeah, I've tried them, and for my style of photography, I didn't like them that much, but Russ Croman, who I heard speak recently, he's doing some interesting things with AI. Both is getting rid of the stars and then also the blur exterminator, which from what I understand, is truly closer to deconvolution than something like Topaz, which is just trained on all kinds of images, but it is still an AI model. So it's inserting some data, I guess, that's not there. But you could say the same thing about making starless images. It's inserting some data that's not really there. And I've been using that technique for years, and I sort of couldn't live without it. So yeah. So I don't know. That's not really a full answer to the question, but I use some of them and not some of them. And it's sort of, for me, it's just about aesthetically, do I like what it's doing?
Right.
Yeah.
Beginner question. All I have is a Red Cat 51 and a Star Tracker. And that's when I decided not to do astrophotography, but to do observing. So now I want to kind of get back into doing basic astrophotography. Would you recommend just getting a DSLR or just investing in a cool camera?
That's a hard question today, because a lot of people really like the ASI Air device, which makes the
That's the
UI.
path I was thinking about
So
going down.
If you're someone who finds app interfaces pretty easy to use, you might just want to go into a cool camera and something like that. But what I did, on my path was use DSLRs and
Right. It was
so it's sort of what
you were a photographer.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not a photographer.
Okay, then maybe the cool camera would make sense, yeah. But I guess with the cool camera, if you want to avoid a lot of the hassle of downloading drivers and all that, get the ASI Air with it.
That's what I was gonna do. Mono or color?
I'd go color.
Go around here.
Color. As a beginner, I think color is a nice option today because we have these dual narrowband filters that we didn't when I was starting out that are really great, even if you're in a light blue video.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Cool. Final parting words. If you did not get enough astrophotography tonight or did not get enough of Nico, another pitch for the AP-SIG this weekend, where there'll be more discussions of astrophotography and more talk from Nico. Thank you everyone for coming, and a reminder, keep an eye on what we're doing over the summer. And there are refreshments in the library, so I'll certainly welcome people to continue to hang out and chat. And especially for our new members, again, please don't be shy. We'd love to get to know you better. Take care.
Thank you.